This decision affirms what millions of Americans already believe in their hearts. When all Americans are treated as equal, we are all more free.
We're going to bring you back to our top story. The U.S. Supreme Court ruling today in favor of making same-sex marriage a right, changing the lives of millions of Americans. The decision may not have happened without the perseverance of people such as Jeff Zarrillo and Paul Katami. A few years ago, the same-sex couple from California took their fight for marriage all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. We're going to speak with them in a moment, but first, some background.
It took a while to get to this day. A slight push for change soon became a force. Just 12 years ago, Massachusetts became the lone state to legalize same-sex marriage, followed 5 years later by Connecticut, growing slowly over the next few years. A big jump in 2013 after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a key portion of the Defense of Marriage Act. Up to 36 by last year, and today, the entire country. Those laws were passed by politicians who have caught up with rapidly changing public opinion. Take a look at this. In 2001, Americans opposed same-sex marriage by a 57% to 35% margin. Since then, support has flip-flopped. Today, a majority of Americans support same-sex marriage, compared with those who oppose it.
I will tell you that I don't believe in gay marriage.
Even President Obama has publicly changed his stance, declaring his support in 2012 and speaking out passionately today.
Sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, propelled by the persistent effort of dedicated citizens.
2 of those dedicated citizens are Jeff Zarrillo and Paul Katami. In 2008, they filed a lawsuit against Prop 8 in California, took their case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and won a landmark decision that restored marriage rights for same-sex couples in their home state of California.
Jeff Zarrillo and Paul Katami are in our Los Angeles studio tonight. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
So, Jeff, when you started out on this journey, did you ever envision you'd be where you are tonight?
Well, I want to say yes, only in the sense that we weren't sure what case it would be, but we knew that at some point the Supreme Court was going to have to affirm everyone's right to marriage. And whether it was our case in 2013 or the Windsor case, all of these cases and all of these courageous plaintiffs all over our country, that's the stepping stone. They brought us all the way back to the Supreme Court in just 2 short years, and now every LGBT citizen in America can marry the person they love.
So, Paul, we've seen a victory in a court opinion today. There's also public opinion. We've seen a poll that suggests most Americans now support same-sex marriage, but a large number do not, and a number of those are very passionate about it. What do you do to say to those people?
Well, the debate continues. The debate doesn't end. The discrimination won't end. And we can continue having this debate. I think what we always knew is we had to rely on our Constitution, defining the law in a way that protects all Americans while that debate's happening. And so fighting for the legal recognition is crucial because it allows us to have the protections while that debate continues. So we firmly believe in still having that debate because it's easy to demonize an idea. And a lot of times when you see these political advances to try to change people's rights, it's based in an idea, some kind of discrimination or bias against them. But when you actually meet people and you humanize the story, that actually is hard to demonize. And what we found is by telling our stories, in accord with the legal battle, that we were able to move public opinion and make them understand a little bit more about the damages we incur by not being able to have the same rights while the debate is happening.
Jeff, do you see that change, a change in America?
Absolutely. We see that change all over the country at all different demographics and ages. And you can see that the support really starts from the younger generation. 80% of Americans under the age of 30 support the right to marry for gay and lesbian citizens. And I think that as we continue to come out in our workplaces and in our communities, in our schools, and our churches even, that encourages our fellow citizens to support the right to marry and beyond the right to marry, all the full federal equality for LGBT citizens.
When you look at that Supreme Court ruling, it was 5-4, and the 4 who dissented, some of the criticism was blistering. What do you make of that?
Well, we also know that our country's backbone is equality. So many times, if you put the word marriage in front of this battle, people have very distinct versions and definitions of what they believe that is. And either it's faith-based or morality-based or whatever it might be. What we knew is that the law should protect us all. And if you stripped away the context and you just started to think about what the fundamental pursuit was, that pursuit was the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of liberty, and ultimately the pursuit of equality, simply that. And we know that the law is there to protect us. And that's what we were all about. Those 4 justices that descended, I think that there's going to be a time where they can come around and understand that this does not damage the institution of marriage, that the law should protect all good Americans, and that we are arcing toward moral history here of equality, and that's the backbone of our country.
But a good number of people will continue to argue that this does damage to that institution of marriage. Do you think you can do anything to talk to those people to convince them?
Well, I think we have to keep telling our stories. And I think if anybody wants to spend time reading Justice Kennedy's eloquent affirmation of our right to marry, you really need to focus on one paragraph, and that's the last paragraph, where he talks about equal human dignity. That's what this has always been about. Marriage is the word we use, and that marriage is the word that we want. Marriage was what we use to get into the court system. But this has always really been about equality, equal human dignity, and Justice Kennedy cemented his legacy as ensuring that LGBT citizens are treated equally in America.
We heard from President Obama today saying it takes ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Are you 2 of those ordinary people?
I don't think we would ever say that. We're actually very ordinary guys from Burbank, California. And what we exemplify is just 2 people who understood that being treated like second-class citizens and being fenced off from laws and rights that other people had access to was damaging our lives. And so we were able to have the opportunity to step up and to stand up, to speak our truth and live our truth out loud. We were lucky to be surrounded by the people we were in this lawsuit. And we knew that we were standing on the shoulders of giants that came before us, people who didn't have the opportunity to speak out and have the platform that we had in this lawsuit. So ultimately, it takes ordinary people to speak up and make change. And we know that we're just part of a collective voice of so many.
I'm guessing that you see today as a big victory, but not the end of the battle.
No, I think marriage is what got us to where we are today. And I think we need to understand that in America, you can be married on Saturday, and in 29 states, you can be fired on Monday. You can be kicked out of your home in a majority of states in America that same week after getting married. So the battle doesn't end. We still have kids being bullied in high school. So the dialogue has to continue. Like Paul said earlier, this doesn't strip away the discrimination and the homophobia. That still exists. But the only thing that's going to combat that is love. And the one thing we've learned over the last 4.5 years, 5 years of our journey is love always wins.
Jeff Zarrillo, Paul Katami, thanks very much.
Thank you for having us.